Hello, my name is Max,
My name is Lindsay.
and this is our Frameworks Final project. Okay, so to start with my contributions, I handled the majority of the Git. So I handled, the creation of our Git repository. I handled its organization and its maintenance. Through Smart Git, I would stage and push all of our builds and make sure we only push the correct files so we don't have junk sitting in our repository. I also handled the filming and the editing of this video presentation. I filmed it with Lindsay through Google Meets, and then I used Premiere Pro to edit it and, make it nice and condensed with the time frame. I handled setting up the correct file paths when we were first starting the project. I made sure we had all the right folders and all the different CPPs and .h's were saved in the right location so the library could link correctly with the framework. And I handled commenting the code and matching the coding standards. I commented the code so you could follow along what was happening with how we wrote our tic-tac-toe game, and then I also mapped the coding standard with academic authenticity for both our CPPs so we can verify that it's our own work.
So for my contributions on the project, I wrote most of the original code for the tic-tac-toe game that we expanded on. I also helped to separate the code and organizing it into different files. I helped with debugging the code. All of this was done remotely due to the fact that we were having issues with me actually being able to work on the project, and as a result of that, I ended up handling most of the documentation and writing about our framework. So, our framework supports a 2-player game of tic-tac-toe. The game starts with the player that places O's and asks them to input their requested column and row, and then checking to see if that space is open and making sure that it actually exists on the board. If this place is open and existing and everything's fine, then the O gets placed. If not, they are asked to enter a new column and row, and this will continue going until they enter a valid space. Once the marker is placed, the game will test to see if there are any winning rows, columns, diagonals, and if one of the players has officially won the game, then there's a win message that displays and congratulates the winning player. If the game ends in a tie, then there's a different message that will be displayed announcing that the game ended in a tie. Once the game ends, the user can determine whether or not they want to play again. And so the reason why we decided to focus on a display-based framework is because when we wrote the original code for our tic-tac-toe game, we decided to write a separate function during that project to display the board just so that the code would look a lot nicer when we were working on it, so we didn't have this convoluted nested for loops in our main game logic. And so we decided that we would move that to a separate file and expand on display related functions.
Okay, so to talk about our framework structure, to start, we have our application, which just consists of our main.cpp, and the main.cpp's goal is to both run the project through the main body, and then it contains the game logic of the tic-tac-toe game as well. And the majority of our work is within our library for our framework structure, which consists of 3 things. We have our library framework.cpp, which defines the functions that we have made that are used to display the game itself. Then we have the library framework.h, which contains the declarations for functions used in the library framework. And then the definitions.h, which is a header file containing the definitions of important variables, enums, and functions. And the reason we have them separated is the definitions.h was code given to us when we made the tic-tac-toe game, and then the code that is within the library frameworks.h is code we made to finalize the display.
So my main takeaway from this project is more learning about how game engines such as Unreal or Unity kind of take this huge amount of code and condense it into a way that's easier for other people to use, that's a lot more user-friendly. And so now I just kind of have this new appreciation for it and everything that goes into it. And even though we created something super simple with our framework, I think that the power that it has to make this huge thing is completely insane. And this really gave me a new interest in looking into graphics and all the stuff that frameworks can be used for within games, which is a lot of things. So I guess I just kind of learned a lot more about making games and not using game engines like I'm used to.
So as for me, I really have two big takeaways from this project. My first one is Git. I've heard of Git and GitHub before, but I've not really ever understood what they were, or even more so, how to use them. So through this class, and SmartGit specifically, I've really learned what Git is and how useful it is to someone that's a programmer. It's a really nice tool to be able to store your code and projects you're working on, not only just to be able to use it in separate locations, but also makes working with other people on a same project so much easier. So I know I'm definitely going to use Git for the rest of my life as a programmer. My other takeaway is frameworks. I've always known about Unity, Unreal, engines, and I've never really assumed or thought about a video game being made in any other way. But now that I've done projects around frameworks, I can really see how games can be made with no engine, with just pure code. And now that I have that knowledge, I feel I can learn to make games in both engine and just frameworks. So I feel that'll be really useful in my professional life.
The user is requested to keep adding in, no, that's not right. Dang it. I done goofed.
I would stage it, just click, fuck.
Oh, do you get the sound too?
It doesn't, that's even better. There's no sound at all. I'm just gonna have Out of Sync Megalovania playing along with this, and me talking as well. I'm just gonna leave this in the end, because, I don't know. The video won't be over 10 minutes. Well, it will be over 10 minutes, but not all 10 minutes of it will be useful. So I don't know.
I can't hear you over the sound of Megalovania.
That's fine. So, Professor Buckstein, if you've watched this far and you see this, thanks for being a cool teacher and showing us your cat. See ya when we come back to Vermont. Bye.
Oh,